awareness, and you take this worldview, your life will become a reflection of that worldview. Your consciousness will slowly begin to shut down until you're in a state that resembles sleep or hypnosis. And you will have all kinds of susceptibility to techniques of mind control, which I'll be talking about. And when we take this negative worldview, then we want to lash out against everyone else. We're cut off, we're separate from everybody else, we're in a state of internal confusion because our consciousness is shut down, and then we want control. We want to feel better about ourselves by taking external control over someone else. And all that's doing is ignoring the basic problem. The basic problem that a controller does not know oneself. They don't really understand the modalities of consciousness that are indwelling within them. And because they're in that state of internal confusion, then they seek for external control over others. You're only going to create chaos, suffering, disorder, disharmony, and ultimately enslavement by looking at the world in that way. These are the states that a negative worldview brings into manifestation. A being that is shut down in fear, totally oppressed, or looking to oppress others, like a sorcerer or a big brother type. So that is worldview. The next concept I'm going to introduce is magic versus sorcery. These are very real forces. These are very real energies that are being used all around us at all times in the world. And they're very real, but they're quite different from the Hollywood interpretation or definition. A real magician or sorcerer isn't, casting lightning bolts from his fingertips, but he is using forces at work in the world to create what he wishes to create. And here's the definition of magic. This is what magic actually is in the real world. Magic is a science. It's a science and art of influencing change to occur in accordance with the will. Now that's a very important term there at the end. Will with a capital W. Okay? Whole books, whole volumes have pretty much been written about what that means. And this does not mean the practitioner's egoic will, my desire, what I want to see happen, what I want to see done. This is the will of the energy of creation. It is the will of love. It is the will of that polar force that wants to create order, the divine intelligence inherent in creation, in the energy of creation. Now, you can call that whatever you want. I have no problem calling that God. I have no problem calling that the divine. This is the divine will. But you could think of it however you wish to think of it. So that's what magic is. The science and art of influencing change to occur in accordance with the will, capital W, the divine will. Let thy will be done, not my egoic will. Okay? Magic's goal is the state of non-dualism. We talked about this before. This is the state of dominion, the state of not being able to be torn apart internally. This is the state of as you think, so you feel, and so you act. You are non-dual. You are one within. Your three aspects of your consciousness are one and cannot be torn apart. As you think, so you feel, so you act. That is magic's goal. A true magician is trying to bring the state of non-dualism into being, not only within himself, but with anyone else that he may have the ability to influence and inspire. And the process of this, of a magician's process to create the state of non-dualism is known as alchemy. And alchemy is not this medieval concept of turning actual metals, base metals, into gold. This is an allegory. This is a symbolic allegory of helping to raise base consciousness into solar consciousness, into divine consciousness, non-dual consciousness, harmonic with the resonant energy of love, of order, of a unified brain, the unified male and female energies. So that's what an alchemist is really trying to do. He is attempting to inspire others and be an influence for them to raise their consciousness up to a higher level. That's what the process of alchemy is. And that's a magician's vehicle for doing his work to accomplish non-dualism. The opposite of magic is sorcery. And as you see here, the definition is almost identical. Sorcery is the science and art of influencing change to occur in accordance with the will. And you'll notice that the will is no longer capitalized, lowercase w, okay, because this form of will is not the capital W will. It is not the divine energy. It is not the divine aspect of creation, the divine will. This is the sorcerer's own egoic desires, what I want to accomplish for my ends. Let not thy will be done, let my will be done. So sorcery also has a goal, and what it is trying to create and bring into the world is the state of opposition. Opposition is the state when polar forces are at war with each other, and there is struggle, there is conflict, there is suffering, there is chaos. Moreover, it means that sorcery wants to create, and a sorcerer wishes to create an opposition within an individual. This is the opposition that takes place within us. We aren't unified in the way we think, feel, and act. We may think a certain way or feel a certain way about something, and yet we do something that's in opposition to that. So we're torn apart from within. The three aspects of our consciousness are not unified as one. They are torn apart. So in that aspect, the person is in internal opposition, where they are crucified within themselves. It can be seen as. And the actual methodologies that are used to accomplish this state of opposition, both within an individual and in the external world, is the sorcerer's tools of illusion and manipulation. It is getting people to believe in something that simply is not real and that does not serve their interest in the world, does not serve who we are and how we are really meant to live. And it creates disharmony and strife and suffering in the world. They want to try to get people to believe that way because it may benefit them. Even though it doesn't benefit the whole, it may benefit them so that they profit and they come out on top and everyone else suffers. That's what a sorcerer is really trying to do. And they use illusion and manipulation, playing people off against each other, manipulating them, getting them to see things that they want them in a way that they want them to see it, getting them to believe in things that aren't real, don't serve them, and yet then people develop an attachment to it. And that's really what creates all suffering. So that's what magic and sorcery is really about as they are used in the real world. So the next concept in consciousness that we have to understand is what really keeps us as a species in a state of general unconsciousness. What are the barriers to our self-realization? And look at the word realization. I'll be talking a lot about the meaning of words going forward in the presentation. To use one's real eyes, to realize something. When we realize it, we are making it real, realizing it. Okay? So it's bringing something into manifestation. Well, what are our barriers to realizing the true self, the true essence of who we are, The barriers to the realization of the true self. Okay, not the egoic self, but the real essence of who we are. Here are the four main barriers to the realization of the true self. The five sense illusion, ego identification, the prison of the left brain, and institutionalized belief systems, which we've already talked a bit about. So I'll take them in order. The five sense illusion is the first barrier to the realization of the true self. This is the idea that only what we are able to perceive with our sensory organs is real. And anything that lies outside of that sense perception cannot exist. That's what this concept is, the five sense illusion. This first image over here on the left is the visible bandwidth of light energy that we are able to see and decode as color in the human eye. And you see, this is a blow up of it here, but over here, this little strip right here, okay, is in fact all of the visible colors of light that the human eye can perceive. There is an infinity in the spectrum to the left and the right of frequencies that the human eye cannot decode as color, yet they exist. Sound is another example. Take a dog whistle as an example. You blow a dog whistle, your ear does not hear the sound, yet a dog's ear does. That's because your ear is tuned to a different vibratory bandwidth of frequencies than is a dog's ear. Does that mean that no sound is coming out of the whistle that you're blowing? Of course not. The sound vibration exists, it's traveling through the air. It's actually reaching your ear. Your ear just can't decode it as sound. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Our identification with the solidity of matter. Most people do not realize that matter is nothing but solid. It's nothing like anything solid. Matter is almost entirely empty space. The atom is almost entirely empty space. The nucleus of an atom, if you made it the size of a baseball, the electrons, what we term the electron shells, would be city blocks away from the nucleus, and all in between is empty space, vacuum. If you took a subatomic particle of an atom and looked at it under enormously powerful magnification, we don't even have the technology to do that. Scientists understand that these subatomic particles that comprise all matter are really vibratory energy. They're just a wave of energy vibrating very quickly, like a little rubber band. This is string theory. And think of it like a telephone cord. If you took a telephone cord or a jump rope, okay, and just kept whipping it faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, eventually you can make it look like there was a ball there if you were able to move to whip it around fast enough, but it's not a solid object. You have a very, very thin unidimensional piece of rope or strand or string, and it's just vibrating, and it's taking a form by the way it's vibrating. Matter is the same way. Matter is not solid. It's simply energy and vibration. And everything is made of this. From the smallest cells, the smallest single-cell organisms, to entire galaxies. We are made of this. We are not solid. We are energy taking a form through vibration. Okay, so we have to understand that if we're going to get past this five sense illusion of only what we see and perceive, to our limited sensory organs is real. It simply is not true. A great experiment that really helps one to understand that matter isn't really solid and that our consciousness is really what determines the outcome of how we perceive and experience the physical world is the double slit experiment, the quantum physics double slit experiment. You could go online and look that up and watch a video about it, but I'll briefly describe it here. Scientists take very, very small bits of matter. Like let's say you took a little ball bearing and you shot it through 2 slits, as you see up here. You get a pattern on the other wall, okay, that looks like 2 slits from where they went through and they struck the measuring device on the other side. Okay, so that's this first image here. Very small pieces of matter, like let's say ball bearings or pellets. You're shooting them through a shield with 2 slits in it, and that's the pattern they form on the other side. Now, when scientists do this with electrons, which are very, very, very small bits of matter,